What do you do when fear distorts truth and confusion shakes your faith? What happens when people twist hope into panic and expectations into anxiety? The book of 2 Thessalonians was written to believers facing exactly that situation. Paul writes to calm fears, correct misunderstandings, and call believers back to steady, grounded faith. This letter reminds us that truth brings peace, and perseverance matters when faith is tested. Overview. 2 Thessalonians is a follow-up letter from the Apostle Paul to the same church he had previously encouraged. After receiving his first letter, some believers became unsettled by false teachings about the return of Christ. Others were discouraged by ongoing persecution, while some stopped working altogether, believing the end was immediate. Paul writes to address these issues with clarity and care. He reassures believers that God's justice will prevail, corrects false claims about the timing of Christ's return, and calls the community back to responsible, disciplined living. This letter balances hope with wisdom. Paul encourages perseverance while warning against fear-driven behavior. Faith is not fueled by panic, but by trust and truth. Historical and social context. The Thessalonian believers continued to face opposition and hardship. Rumors, forged letters, and exaggerated claims about the end times were spreading. Some believed the day of the Lord had already arrived, causing anxiety and disorder within the church. Paul writes to stabilize the community. He reminds them that God is in control of history and that certain events must take place before Christ's return. His goal is not to satisfy curiosity, but to protect believers from fear and deception. This context highlights an important principle: misunderstanding spiritual truth can disrupt daily life and weaken community. Key themes in 2 Thessalonians. Perseverance in persecution. Paul affirms that suffering for faith is not overlooked by God. Justice and restoration are part of God's plan. Truth over fear. False teachings can create panic. Paul emphasizes discernment and stability rooted in truth. The timing of Christ's return. Believers are reminded not to be shaken by rumors or claims about immediate fulfillment. Responsibility in daily life. Faith does not excuse irresponsibility. Paul strongly encourages productive, disciplined living. God's faithfulness. God strengthens, protects, and sustains believers through every trial. Standing firm. Believers are called to hold on to sound teaching and resist confusion. Key passages in 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians 1 verses 6-7, God's justice and future relief. 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 1-3, a warning against deception. 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 15, holding firmly to sound teaching. 2 Thessalonians 3 verse 3, God's faithfulness and protection. 2 Thessalonians 3 verses 6-12, a call to responsible living. 2 Thessalonians 3 verse 16, the Lord's peace at all times. Relevance Today. 2 Thessalonians speaks clearly to a time marked by misinformation, anxiety, and speculation. It challenges the tendency to chase dramatic claims while neglecting faithful living. The letter calls believers to be steady, thoughtful, and grounded. It also reminds communities that faith affects daily responsibility. Waiting for God's future does not mean disengaging from present duties. Instead, faith produces perseverance, integrity, and peace. In a noisy world, this letter teaches believers to listen carefully, think clearly, and trust deeply. Closing thought. 2 Thessalonians calls believers to stand firm when faith feels shaken. Truth steadies the heart, responsibility anchors life, and hope remains secure in God's timing. Paul's message is simple and strong: do not be alarmed, do not be idle, and do not lose heart. Faith grows strongest when it is rooted in truth and lived with perseverance.